Coming up, we have part 2 of Matthew Newton's interview with Amanda Fowler, a CRNA who is encouraging others in their entrepreneurial endeavors while also going after her own pursuits. Let's get to it, shall we? Welcome to the Plan B CRNA Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA Podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. Join me for some honest, unscripted discussions with other CRNAs who are transforming their financial lives. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today. And now, on with the show.
So I recently just read an interesting article in the AANA about a CRNA entrepreneur that's encouraging other CRNAs to pursue their passions. And I believe you were the star of that article. So, how did the AANA find you? And what was it like being the focus of an article that is going to see probably 60,000 CRNAs across America?
I had established very good relationships with our leadership over the years. I've been to multiple conferences, meetings, whether it was in the leadership side of it or just our annual Congress meetings. So I've established relationships, very good friendships. I think the friendships I have with certain individuals in our leadership are probably some of the most cherished. I think about when I had my best friends at high school and college, currently in my life, and then I think about the friendships that I've made in our leadership. I cherish them. They will be friends for life, and they will be there for me no matter what. And it's vice versa. I'm very supportive of those I believe in, and I have a lot of support from our leadership and the things that I'm trying to do in order to advocate, speak my mind about how I feel about our profession, what needs to change, what are the good positive things that are occurring. So I guess you could say that I've always kept good relationships and a good connection with the AANA. They always know what I'm doing. I always make sure that they know what I'm doing. So when I discussed my current entrepreneurial decision with our PR marketing director, her name is Julie. She's a wonderful, wonderful human being. She was very intrigued by my story, and her and I worked together and we collaborated on what I wanted to portray and what my main points were in order to inspire others. It wasn't necessarily me trying to, as you said, the short-lived, star of an article. That's not my goal. I'm not like that. It was me trying to inspire other healthcare providers, not just CRNAs, but other healthcare providers that are over the compassion fatigue. There's another word for that, but compassion fatigue. And I wanted to inspire those that are to that point where they don't feel like it's the right fit for them anymore, and make sure that others are educated into knowing that they have options. There are other things that they can do to support their families, to pay their bills, or financially, if that's the reason why CRNAs do not branch out and do something that makes them happy. There are options. You're not stuck. If you're not happy, move on. And I do want to emphasize that to people. It can be a very, very demanding profession. We all have been there. I mean, especially in the hospital system, call requirements, overworked, no lunch breaks, making sure that you please the surgeon, you please everyone else around you, and not please yourself and not take care of yourself. It can be a very, not only stressful life, but it can be a very unhealthy life. When you don't take care of yourself and you're always taking care of everyone else, you're going to burn out. It's a matter of time. So I wanted to make sure that Julie and I worked together into coming up with an article that was inspiring for others, helped anyone that's feeling that way get out and make themselves healthy and happy.
So, you talk about inspiration and encouragement, which I think is just paramount to what we do. It's very easy to doubt yourself, and having others in the profession, I guess like myself, because I'm one of those kinds of people that I'll always take a call with anybody, any nurse getting out of school, any CRNA, anyone that wants advice. I'm happy to tell you my successes. I'm even happier to tell you my failures. I don't want you to make the same mistakes I did. I want you to make new mistakes, and I want to help people and build them up, because there's a lot of naysayers out there. So, with all the naysayers saying nay, has everybody been completely supportive of you and tried to help you, or have you had people try to kind of bring you down in the process?
Glad that you brought this topic up, because boy, do I have a lot to say about that. As I mentioned earlier in the beginning of our interview, I've always been a very, very positive, happy person. And I guess leadership has just always come natural to me, making others feel proud of themselves, happy, encouraged, supported, lifting others up. You're that role model for those that are trying to figure it out. So like I said, I've always been this, positive person. And when you have others that do everything in their power to try to bring that down and try to shut that down, it's hard. We all have feelings. Somebody tells you something negative and says that you're doing something wrong, or you're going to fail, or, what's wrong with you? You're not normal, and you start having individuals say these things to you, whether it's directly or behind your back, indirectly. Yeah, of course it can take a toll on you. Absolutely. We're all human. You don't want someone else to say something bad about you, it's hurtful. But the difference with me is just makes things even better for me, because what happens when somebody does something to me that I guess you could say qualifies as a naysayer and says negative things or tries to discourage me from whatever I'm pursuing, it's more fire under me to do what I'm supposed to do, or what I feel I'm supposed to do. I am motivated by those who are negative, because I want others to understand that bullying people, making people feel bad about themselves, putting people down in order to make yourself feel higher or better than someone else, it's disgusting. It's horrible. We should all be encouraging and supportive of each other if our goal is to do something good or do the right thing. If you fail, and you make mistakes, that's the process. It's part of life. You're going to fail in life. If you learn from your mistakes and you see how you did it wrong, and then you try and go through a new avenue in order to correct your mistakes, that's how you succeed. And for you to have coworkers, colleagues that you see on a regular basis tell you otherwise and try to discourage you from your dreams or your goals in life, they have their own insecurity issues. So I just want other people to understand that it's not you. Don't place yourself around people that are negative and that are naysayers. You want to stay around positive, encouraging, supportive individuals, especially when you're making that leap into entrepreneurial land.
I always say you can kind of tell where you're at, because competition happens at the bottom and collaboration happens at the top. And, you can tell that you're doing well because what are you doing? You're collaborating, you're encouraging and inspiring. It's the people that are at the bottom that try to keep you down there with them, that are always competing. It's funny, when I originally started my first anesthesia practice, when people heard that I was going out on my own and leaving the hospital, they came to me and they were like, you're just going to fail and you're going to be back here with your tail between the legs in 6 months. And I said, okay. And if I fail, great. At least I failed on my own accord and I tried, and like I said, there's nothing wrong with people that like to punch a clock, more power to you. I'm just kind of built differently. So, I even remember to the point to where, one of my first 2 employees that came and worked for us in the hospital, they told me after the fact, they were like, yeah, so-and-so and so-and-so came up to me and they were like, you're just going to be out of a job. Why would you ever risk, going and working for them? Stay here with us. Don't do that. And it's amazing watching the amount of people that don't believe in you or don't want you to succeed. And that's fine. Like I said, you kind of feel bad for them because, that bleeds into every aspect of their life. Like for me, like even if the odds are you're going to fail, and most businesses do within 5 years, at least you tried. I would much rather, if I'm going to go down in flames, I'd rather do it on my own accord and knowing I gave it my all than not try at all. Like it's funny. People let fear rule their lives when, realistically, you should be helping everybody get to kind of where you want to be and, and just doing, achieving everything that you have. So, talking about like failures, and have you had any significant struggles or interesting failures along the way that's kind of propelled you forward, and how'd you deal with them?
I made some very bad decisions when I was younger. I got married too young. I was married right after I graduated college. It was about 3 weeks after I graduated college that I was married, 23 years old, very naive, and just not understanding what my decisions could lead to. So I went through a horrible divorce, and I'm still paying the consequences for it. Unfortunately, I had 2 small children that were affected by this, and it was hard. It was very difficult. My family's in California, and then I have a little bit of family in Florida. So being alone on your own with very limited support when you're dealing with something like this, it's hard. So I guess you could say failures in my life were not necessarily professionally. It was more in my personal life. I guess I didn't realize that making such a bad decision would result in long-term consequences. So, like I said, with the professional side of things, you make a mistake and you learn from it, and you move on and you do better. It's how you should live your life. At least that's what I believe. If you're going to make decisions, they might not be the best decisions. You may have made one of the worst mistakes of your life, whether it's personal, professional, financial, whatever the case may be. But as long as you can move on from it and you can understand what you did in order to get yourself into that situation, you learn from it, and you're strong enough to be better because of it. That's the key. That is the key.
So it's interesting you say that, because what I hear is a lot of I statements, which to me is the most important thing. Because like when you talk to people about like, oh, have you ever had a failure, or have you ever had something that set you back? It's like, well, this happened to me, and that I'm the victim. But the fact that you can say, hey, I made this mistake and I learned from it, just says everything. Like if you think about it, failure and I guess struggle is biologically useful to us as people. It's nature's preferred agent to inspire like positive changes in our lives. And as long as you can recognize like, hey, I did this, and this, and it didn't work. Well, I've learned from my mistakes. I'm going to dust myself off, and next I'm going to succeed or fail better. To me, that's where real growth happens. So like, you always hear about these people that, one little tiny thing knocks them down and they never get back on their horse. And it's like, and you feel bad because you're like, man, like there's so much more out there. Just believe in yourself, learn. And and you're going to knock it out of the park next time. So I guess when it comes to some things here, so like I see, in the professional world, I always see you online. I always see you at all the conventions. You have a very strong presence with the AANA and at the CRNA meetings. Why is it important to advocate for our profession and the ways that you do?
I try to keep politics out of conversation a lot of times because it's such a heated subject in our leadership world, or just in our profession. Politics with the ASA, this war that's going on between the anesthesia, actually now you could say the 3 parts of anesthesia today. You have nurse anesthetists, you have AAs, anesthesiology assistants, and then you have anesthesiologists. I think a lot of reasons why certain CRNAs get involved in leadership is to fight this war in order for us to keep our presence in the anesthesia community. That's not me. I'm more of the peacekeeper, I guess you could say. I don't like wars. I like happiness and I like peace. Do I think that we're wasting a lot of money and effort and resources and lawyers and lobbying? My opinion probably doesn't matter, but yes, I do believe we are. Now, I get a lot of backlash from those high up in our leadership for saying that, but if you look at history and war, and you look at what occurs when you're fighting a battle that's not worth it, you see what happened to those in war on both sides. Why do we want to continue this war? What's the point? Now, do we need to defend ourselves? Absolutely. If someone's going to attack you and attack your well-being, your livelihood, your financial stability, of course you're going to defend yourself. Yes, fight back. But why are we going after other anesthesia professions if at the end of the day, we aren't being attacked? It's more of us being the bully or us being the instigator. I don't understand the reasoning behind it. Now, again, are there situations that are occurring right now where the ASA is doing everything in their power to try to maintain their place in anesthesia today? They're throwing money at lawyers and lobbyists like it's water. I mean, they have a lot of power. They have a ton of say in this market, but that's how it is. It just is what it is. Us, we're more affordable. I have an anesthesia provider that can do mostly this exact same thing as an anesthesiologist, mostly. Not everything, but mostly. Financially, as a business owner, are you going to employ an anesthesiologist or a nurse anesthetist that's competent? Of course you're going to employ a CRNA. Everybody already knows that. That's just pretty much common sense if you are in a surgery business or the dynamics of surgery and anesthesia. Everybody already knows that. If somebody still makes the decision to employ an anesthesiologist, that's their decision. They have reasons behind it. Let them be. Let them do what they want to do. If they do not choose to support CRNAs or hire CRNAs, oh well. Fighting a fight that's never going to produce results, it's a waste of financial resources. It's a waste of effort. We could be putting money and time and we have a pretty significant voice in the medical community. I don't know if you know, but like the AANA, we have a lot of voice within certain various, profession companies. We have a pretty big following. Why don't we continue that? Why don't we try to make ourselves more known and place our effort and our financial resources into making us more well-known, giving us more of a voice in society and what we do, instead of just this constant war? It's just, for me, my opinion, I think it's unnecessary. But yes, if we are attacked, of course we have to defend ourselves. We have to go and do what we have to do legally in order to make sure that, our profession isn't affected by that. But I'm a little bit different when I go into leadership and I attend these conferences and these meetings and I see, these very passionate CRNAs that are up on the podium and just bashing other anesthesia providers, saying that we're the best and this is what they've done to us, and more power to them because they're passionate about their profession, and that's wonderful. But I'm a little bit different because I look at things from a little bit of a different perspective and how to solve problems, and I don't believe war is ever the answer unless it's necessary.
Yeah, some of the talking head CRNAs get a little, they're very passionate. I love the passion, but sometimes they kind of enter into more of the toxic realm, which is a little tough. I differ, I guess, a little bit on you. I do think that there needs to be some advocacy when it comes to that, because, I've worked on a handful of bills where, some of the anesthesiologists out there have slipped some wording in there that essentially would make us put us into the nurse practitioner collaborative agreement style thing. And you got to kind of fight back on that. But, my big thing is I'm blessed right now for the anesthesiologists that I work with. They're wonderful, and they don't play the politics and all that. And I wish it was all like that across the board. But once again, though, I'm always kind of like, we need to watch out and, you protect your profession the best you can. But I think, once again, I think that there's, the people that are always, very anti everything and then very anti CRNA that says anything slightly different than them. Like I said, there's one extreme or the other, and I fall in the middle because I'm one of those kinds of people. I'm like, love CRNAs to death. Do I work with AAs at certain sites? Absolutely. And that's fine. But some people are like, they get really angry. I would never do that. And it's like, well, I work in Georgia and Georgia's the king of AA states, unfortunately. I'm like, hey, is it my favorite? No. I'm like, or I could just not work. There's not a, what do you want to do? And I will always advocate for CRNAs. I'm like, but depending on the market you're in, that's just how it is.
That's how it is. And it's, Georgia, so everyone is aware, is the first state that AAs, began our first AA program was at Emory University. And now we have a CRNA program, which is awesome. And it's doing very, very well. I'm very proud of everything that they have accomplished. Oh, wow. As an Emory alumni, seeing that to me, it was very fulfilling. I loved that there is now a CRNA presence at Emory when you have, residents, anesthesia residents, and AAs consuming the ORs. Now you have CRNA students there too. It's interesting dynamic.
Yeah, well, in fact, I like that Emory now has the CRNA program too. They actually approached me about teaching a little while back when I got my doctorate, and I love teaching, and you'll see me teaching down the road at some point, sooner probably rather than later. But the Emory requires an obscene amount of publications, and I just don't have the time in my life to be published 2 to 3 times a year. I love a good research paper and a good good DMP project, but it's a lot. But yes, I am very happy that Emory's also kind of putting out a CRNA program on top of the AAs. We need more CRNA programs that are putting more good, solid, well-rounded CRNAs out. So having done so much in your career, for somebody that is maybe just getting started off on a similar journey, either wanting to go into business on their own or, maybe independent practice or just, how to be the best, most well-rounded CRNA, what's your advice? What's the most influential thing you can tell them to do to ensure their success?
Well, I haven't, I don't know if you read that specific quote that was posted on Instagram. It was a quote they extracted from the article, but it highlights that I stated that once you're successful, you can teach others and you can help mentor others. I'm not there yet. So I would hate to give advice that may not work. Am I building everything at the moment? Yes. And it's going to take some time. I'm very about quality, not quantity. So this takes longer than most people. I've seen healthcare providers open med spas in, less than a month, but that's not me. I take my time. I make sure everything is perfect. Quality for me is everything. I want to be proud of what I build. And, with 2 little kids and a house to maintain and, school and trips and, family life. And, I still do anesthesia too. So it's going to take time. Dear Lord, I would like to think I'm Superwoman, but I'm not. Another thing that I didn't mention earlier was, dancing and these cheerleading auditions. It's my outlet. I mean, this is why I do what I do, because of the amount of stress and responsibilities and requirements I place on myself. It's just such a good outlet for me. I enjoy it. I love performing. I love dancing. And if I take that away from my life, I will not be successful in aesthetics, in building a business. It just won't, because what I need is that outlet to motivate me and to feel good about who I am and who I've become and have that driving force to push through and do what I know I can do. So I don't know if I can give any advice at the moment. I can give advice based on where I am currently, but am I successful as this major aesthetic entrepreneur? No. I mean, I'm just in the beginning phases right now. I'm in the middle of hiring, a couple of employees, learning a lot about business. My entire family are entrepreneurs, so it's in my blood. I mean, I was ever since I was little, I have been around, my grandparents, my dad, my uncle, everyone in my family owns their own business. So it was just a matter of time before I started this journey. But, I again, if you look at that quote that's in the Instagram post, I will start teaching others when I can say I'm successful, because I'm not going to go and try to give advice or show the way and the path of what I've done to become successful, because I haven't accomplished what I need to accomplish first in order to mentor others.
So I'll say, to me, one of the most telling things about success and being a leader is humility. And it sounds like you have that. I'll go ahead and let you know, you're a mom, you're an entrepreneur, you have your own companies, you've practiced in every setting, you're an independent practitioner, you have hobbies, you're going for cheerleading. These are all things that you're doing that show that you're a success. I mean, you're being interviewed on a podcast that's going to get listened to by thousands of CRNAs. These are all like, you're there, and now all you got to do is just keep going with that path. You're doing everything right, and that's exactly what you want. So I got one more question, just because I always think it's good to state your goals, and we can always check back in later and hold you accountable. What is your plan, I guess, for the next 2 to 5 years, whether it's between business, career, or motherhood, politics? Where do you see yourself in 2 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Something that you can kind of put out there in the real world and make it real.
I'm hoping that within 2 years, I can make that statement that I'm on the way to success, that I have built something unique, something that I'm proud of, something that helps others. I never would want to build a business that doesn't have a reason behind it. And I believe I've found that specific thing that has reasoning behind what I'm doing. So I'm hoping in 2 years I can say that I have a successful med spa that I'm proud of, that I can say that I built by myself, because I've been offered partnerships. Believe me, another thing that I've learned is when you're naive and trusting in this world, sometimes it can really hurt you and bite you in the butt. You got to be careful about who you trust and who you work with when it comes to a partnership, not who you work with, in everyday medical settings, but in regards to partnering with someone in a business, you got to be very careful. You can make a lot of mistakes right in the beginning by just making the wrong decision because you were trusting and you were naive and you believed somebody and you went by their word instead of legally what's in writing. So I'm doing this all on my own. I'm not making a mistake where I'm placing my vision and my goals in someone else's hands. I guess you could say one piece of advice I can give at the moment is anyone that is interested in choosing an entrepreneurial path as an anesthesia provider, be very careful about who you decide to go into business with, because you're trying to get out of control. You're leaving the control of the environment of our hospital systems and other companies. And your reasoning as an entrepreneur is to go be your own boss, right? Right? That's most of us. That's what our goals are. It may be the easy way to accept a partnership. A little help financially, someone else or others to bounce ideas off and work together with. I mean, there are a lot of positives to owning a business with others and having a partnership. But if you've ever been burned or you have ever been too trusting because you're a good person and you continue that, and you make the wrong decision by partnering with someone you thought that you could trust and you thought would have your best interest at heart. You just made your first mistake right there.
It's funny you talk about partnerships. A good partnership is worth everything, because if you go into business with, for one, you don't go into business with family and friends. That's a good way to burn those relationships. But it's interesting because even right now, my wife and I are looking at opening another business, because that's just what we like to do. That's our hobby, is opening businesses. And I have two other partners that where we're kind of talking to that have never owned businesses before. And it's funny. So like for me, I like to test people just to see. I've done 90% of the work already. And my one dirty trick I always like to do is I just dump everything on their plate. And I'm like, here's your homework. Here's what you have to do. And I'm just completely overbearing and overwhelming, because I want to see, for one, do you meet deadlines? And then two, how do you deal with conflict? And how do you deal with just actually getting your side of the partnership stuff done? And, no matter what they come back to me with, I don't really care about the information. I've already got 90% of it. I just want to see, can you do these things? Because a good partnership, it's tough. And before in my life, I've been outvoted, either for better or for worse. There's been arguments, knockdown, dragouts, like cats and dogs. And then the other thing is do you let it bleed into your other relationships? In one of my past relationships or partnerships, we had a great relationship where we go to work, into our meetings, we'd argue about stuff, oh, that's a dumb idea, we're going to do this, and say, oh, we go back and forth. And then afterward, that was business, and now we're going to go get a beer and everything's fine. And that's what you want, is you want a good relationship like that. So to your point, finding and selecting the right partners is paramount to any kind of success.
Knowing when to separate business and friendship, a lot of people can't do that. So if you're going to go into business with a partner, you have to learn how to do that, because of course you're going to establish a friendship or camaraderie with somebody that you're in business with. It's just natural. You're relying on each other to make your collaborative vision and successful. So you're going to develop a camaraderie and a relationship outside of business, but you have to learn how to separate, because if you can't separate and you can't make decisions based on logical reasons, and you make emotional decisions because you have a friendship with that partner, it's going to turn out to be not so good most of the time.
In business, there's no room for emotion. It's how are the numbers looking? What's logical? What's the correct path? It's not how you personally feel about it. And people have a hard time separating that. But Amanda, this has actually been great. And I think this is a lot of really good information that our viewers are going to find very, very, very useful. I just wanted to thank you for being on the show. And for everybody that's listening, I'll have Amanda's information in the show notes. If anybody needs any, advice for leadership or how to kind of, advance in their careers or anything like that, there'll be a way to get a hold of her. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Matt. Great to see you.
Amanda touched on some of the topics that I think have become a bit universal in the anesthesia community, talking about burnout, compassion fatigue, and the like. And the great thing is that I believe these subjects are being talked about more and recognized more over the last several years. The more we talk about it and encourage each other, the better professional community we can build. And having options is a really big deal. It allows you to make some mistakes and learn from them. I also wanted to echo something that Matthew said. Competition happens at the bottom and collaboration happens at the top. The spirit of collaboration is encouraging others through their ups and downs. And we all know that in our profession, we have to work with others who have different specialties and qualities to offer to the team. But in going outside of the OR, I found that so much of the world works in that same way, and that teams accomplish so much more than individuals. But I think there were parts that I really struggled with in my career. I found it particularly challenging to reconcile the collaboration needed to succeed in the OR every day with the constant battles that were necessary to protect and advance our profession. The more I delved into the political side of things, the more disgruntled I became in my everyday career. Thinking back, I believe that actually led to a much quicker burnout for me. I could recognize the different agendas at play, and I became dissatisfied with both the indifference of some, the daily injustices, and the seemingly futile nature of it all. Being more of a mediator myself, I kind of wanted everyone to just get along and stop taking advantage of each other. But once I ventured outside of the profession, that's where I was really able to see collaboration in other ways. Only then did I see the true potential for those in anesthesia to be a more equal part in various team environments. By connecting with CRNAs around the country who are doing amazing things, I learned that we can lead, we can inspire, and we can succeed in ways that I'd never imagined. Our profession should never limit us. It should only empower us to reach new heights together. That's going to do it for today's show. For those of you who want to connect with Amanda and learn more about her journey, make sure you check out the show notes for her contact information. This is Bobby Jones signing off. Until next time, stay safe and take care of each other out there. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA Podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by On-Call Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find On-Call Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.